When the Rams won the Super Bowl in 2021, it broke a 37-year Super Bowl drought for the beautiful city of Angels. The city has a long and storied history in itself, with it being the center of the film industry and one of the biggest markets for sports team to be located in. And thus, it has two NFL, NBA, MLB, and an NHL team. Combined from all of these teams, the city has in the region of 30 championships, but despite all of this, the city went 20 years without an NFL team during the turn of the century, and the complications surrounding an NFL team in the city have been a stain on every team located there since the beginning. The year is 1946, and after World War II, the sports world saw massive spikes in its popularity due to famous players making their return to their respective lineups. Baseball set attendance records for the Yankees, Tigers, Dodgers, and Red Sox, with the radio rights to the World Series selling for $150,000, roughly $2.4 million today. College football saw some schools draw large crowds as well, with Notre Dame never playing a game below 50,000 fans in the stands. A game between Michigan and Illinois drew 85,938 people. USC versus UCLA played before 93,714, and the Army Navy game sold out the Polo Grounds. The NFL owners at the time were expecting a similar increase in popularity, but when the season rolled around, the NFL lagged behind their other sports. The championship in 1945 drew 32,178 people, and the radio rights sold for a fraction as well. Sports fans weren't paying the same level of attention to the NFL even after 25 years of existence. With the three main cities being Chicago, New York, and Washington, D.C., the NFL still find themselves regional as a league, being centered to the Northeast and Midwest, meaning most of the country just didn't see games. Two things would arise to challenge the regional aspect of the NFL, and both would be tackled by one owner, Dan Reeves. Dan Reeves was born in 1912 in New York, and his family owned nearly 500 locations of a grocery store chain in New York. It was through these stores that Reeves would gain his capital when he sold them to Safeway stores in 1941. With this capital and a partnership with Robert Levy, Reeves would accomplish his dream of owning a professional football franchise. For a total of $135,000, roughly $2.17 million today, Reeves would purchase the Cleveland Rams, with Reeves becoming the sole owner in 1943 while serving the United States Air Force stateside. Through Reeves' ownership, the team quickly turned things around, with them winning the Western Division in 1945 and even winning the championship in the same season thanks to future Hall of Famer Bob Waterfield. The following day after the championship game, Reeves announced his intention to move the Rams from Cleveland to Los Angeles, with the league approving it roughly a month later on January 12, 1946, making the NFL no longer a league for the Midwest. It had gone nationwide. A meeting 3 days later was in place with Rams GM Charles Walsh and the Los Angeles Coliseum Commission to try and lease a stadium for the Rams, with confirmation arriving a few days later on the 23rd. There was a condition, however, to the agreement: the Rams would have to attempt to integrate. At this point, the NFL hasn't attempted to integrate since 1933, and much of the reason behind this was because of Washington owner George Preston Marshall. For every good thing Marshall brought to the NFL in terms of marketing the game, he brought truckloads of baggage with him due to his history. Marshall grew up in Grafton, West Virginia, an almost entirely white town that was distinctly Southern. With Marshall being a descendant of a Confederate, these town views would follow Marshall into adulthood. In 1936, Marshall removed his franchise from Boston to Washington, D.C., and with the move, Marshall saw an opportunity to expand his team's reach, with the target being southward. It was this rationale he showed to the public, but everyone knew that Marshall preferred the NFL to remain segregated for other reasons than business. Nonetheless, Kenny Washington would be signed by the Rams on March 21st, and Woody Strode would be the second a few weeks later, both getting the Rams their stadium in LA and causing the league to integrate, and this time for good, with another black player being signed 2 years later, and only 3 teams having not signed a black player by 1951. The 1946 season saw success for the Rams, with them bringing in an average of 41,000 fans at the Coliseum, but through the highs, road games saw quite a few lows. Content and hotel arrangements brought some challenges, with Strode saying in an interview with Thomas Smith, "If I have to integrate heaven, I don't want to go." The other issue was the two players' health and age. By the time they signed, Washington had gone through multiple knee surgeries and even suffered another knee injury during the season, and Strode was 32 and was signed with less the intention to play, and more so Washington wouldn't be alone on road trips. The Rams saw massive success during their first day in LA, with them going to 4 NFL championship games in 5 years upon their arrival in LA. The 60s saw a dry spell, but as the 70s rolled around, so did the Rams. Thanks to Roman Gabriel and the fearsome foursome, the Rams would win 7 straight NFC West titles from 73 to 79 and made the Super Bowl in 1979. But everything good doesn't last forever, as due to poor ticket sales, the Coliseum being located in what was viewed as a dangerous neighborhood, and the lack of parking availability meant that the Rams wanted a new stadium. Discussions between owner Carroll Rosenblum and the city stalled out, and the Rams were off to Anaheim for the foreseeable future, with the Rams beginning play at Anaheim Anaheim Stadium in 1980. LA would get a team back shortly after when the Raiders made a move in 1982, and this move caused a lot of uproar throughout the NFL as it was done without the approval of NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle. A lawsuit against the NFL started, with both the Raiders and the LA Coliseum Commission suing the NFL for violations to the Sherman Antitrust Act. Both of them claim that NFL Rule 4.3 was utilized in order for the owners to use dirty tricks to prevent the Raiders from moving to LA. Initially, the NFL claimed that the league has the right to have such a rule and utilize such tactics since the NFL issues franchise to members clubs, and, quote, Davis knew full well the contract under which the league operates. The NFL, which earns the money, has the right to decide where teams play, end quote. Eventually, a verdict was decided in 1983, awarding a combined $16.41 million to the Raiders and the Coliseum Commission, with the Raiders getting $11.55 million and the Coliseum getting $4.86 million. Under federal trust law, the penalties would be tripled to $49.2 million. The NFL would appeal, with the ruling being upheld in terms of the Coliseum, but a retrial was in place between the Raiders and the NFL. This led to a settlement worth between $18 to $20 million in 1989. Meanwhile, through all of this, the Raiders found themselves some success in LA, with them winning Super Bowl 18 in '84 and making the AFC Championship game in 1990. But the reputation of the Raiders took a hit even with the success, as the brand name started to get affiliated with the street gangs in LA, specifically the silver and black color scheme. Also, the lucrative packages that the Coliseum used to sway Al Davis to LA was never delivered as promised. The Raiders stopped getting scheduled home Monday Night Football games after 1985, and difficulties selling on home games meant that Al Davis wasn't happy. Rams owner Georgia Frontier would start shopping the Rams after they started falling behind other teams and non-shared revenue opportunities, and by the end of '94, two cities have been selected to house the Rams: St. Louis and Baltimore. Georgia would hold out a little while longer with the hopes that either Anaheim and or Orange County would make an offer, but in the end, neither would happen, and St. Louis would be decided after they offered a brand new $280 million dome stadium that is now the Dome in America's Center. The deal also included a long-term lease and over 100 luxury boxes, with the move being announced in February 1995 and approved by the league in April of the same year. A mere month later, Al Davis's anger surrounding LA and the failure for them to renovate the Coliseum or provide him a new stadium that he wouldn't have to share reached a point where he gave up on the city and set his sights to bring the team back to Oakland. A deal to renovate the Oakland Coliseum was announced on June 23, 1995, and approved by league owners in August. Thus, after 50 years of LA NFL football, in the span of 7 months, the city was left abandoned by the NFL. However, it wouldn't take long for LA to try and get a team back. With the following season in 1996, the Seattle Seahawks announced plans to relocate to Los Angeles. The plan was to play in the Rose Bowl while a new stadium gets built in either Anaheim or Los Angeles, but a new league resolution was put in place in the past years to make it so any return to LA would be controlled by the league. That and a mixture of the Browns leaving Cleveland for Baltimore to become the Ravens, and the Oilers leaving Houston for Tennessee and becoming the Titans, the Seahawks were denied the move and were fined $500,000 for every day the team spent in LA. The city would come close again to getting the team back with expansion efforts in 1999 when the NFL was looking to add a 32nd franchise. They had a shot with condition made between LA and the NFL saying that they had to agree on a stadium site and finance it by September 15, 1999. But the agreements never reached anything, and on October 6, 1999, the honors of the 32nd franchise was given to Houston. 2006 would see more pushes in trying to bring a team back, with then Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger championing for a new stadium in Anaheim and a new LA Coliseum. But reports came out at the same time saying that the NFL wouldn't approve a return to LA unless two teams agreed to play in a single stadium, with Goodell even saying that due to rising cost estimates of a stadium, LA would require to consider unspecified alternate solutions if they want a team back. Even though a team was absent in LA doesn't mean the NFL didn't have a presence, with NFL Network having its headquarters in Culver City when it started in 2003. The Coliseum was a part of opening weekend celebration in 2005, being home of the NFLPA rookie premiere, and the Cowboys have their training camp in Oxnard. During these decades, the idea of moving to LA started to become a kind of bargaining chip for teams when they wanted a new stadium deal. About half of the league used LA in this way by 2015, with 27 stadiums being built or received renovations worth up to $400 million through these empty threats. NBC News said the threat of moving a team to Los Angeles is more valuable for the NFL than actually placing a team there. It's the perfect bargaining chip for the league. Why would a franchise stay in, say, cold weather small market Minnesota without a new stadium when big market celebrity studded LA beckons? A sports economist at Vanderbilt said it is entirely possible that the LA football market has been more valuable to the NFL empty than if it had been occupied since 1995. It is standard operating procedure for the NFL commissioner and other concerned owners to drop the not-so-vile threat of relocations to Los Angeles. And a Yahoo Sports article saying the NFL doesn't necessarily use Los Angeles as a bargaining chip with other cities, but whenever there's a stadium issue in another city, that team suddenly ends up on a list of franchises that could relocate to sunny Southern California. Convenient. The NFL still had a large fan base in LA despite everything, with TV ratings still being high, but LA counties saw a heavy divide in terms of what team they would be a fan of. It also didn't help that college started to regain popularity in the area, with USC and UCLA having increased attendance with a lack of professional sports competition. The fans also seemingly did not care about even wanting the team from the outside looking in. The city had two failed attempts to bring a new stadium to the area, with an attempt in 2001 quickly dying, and an attempt in 2005 dying as well that would have put the stadium near Dodger Stadium. Other interesting sections in the story include an interview in 2009 when John Semkin said that by 2011, LA would have a team again. It took place before Stan Kroenke became sole owner of the Rams, and when that rumor had legs to stand on, as Kroenke becoming owner shot down most rumors of the Rams moving back for the time being. Another attempt in 2012 by AEG to bring a team to LA went nowhere after none of the owners agreed to the demands of AEG, but the legitimacy of this meeting is still very much up for debate. Both the Buccaneers and Jaguars were rumored to relocate to Los Angeles during the 2011 season, but neither rumor went anywhere. 2012 saw the Vikings rumored to move to Los Angeles before they agreed to terms with the Minnesota House of Representatives on a new lease for the Metrodome. The Bills were talked about being sold to Eli Broad in 2014, who had intentions of moving the team to Los Angeles, but never even submitted a bid due to fears that the league wouldn't agree to moving the team. Finally, in 2012, Goodell hinted that the team could return to LA under the idea that the league would expand to 34 teams. This would be in order to add 2 teams back to the city, with the idea of them sharing a stadium, but nothing came from that either. Then things seemingly started heating up. On January 31st, 2014, it was reported that Stan Kroenke had bought about 60 acres of land in Inglewood, with the plans to build a stadium on the site being announced shortly after. Nearly a full year later, the LA Times reported that Kroenke and Stockbridge Capital Group were jointly developing a new stadium on the property. Dell had a press conference right before the Super Bowl saying that multiple teams had expressed interest in moving to Los Angeles. February 24th, 2015, the Inglewood City Council approved plans for the stadium, with the construction set to begin in December of the same year, with the date being set as December 21st, 2015, when they broke ground. A month later, on January 4th, 2016, 3 teams were announced to be in play to relocate to Los Angeles, with all 3 having some kind of ties back to the city. The St. Louis Rams, who played in LA/Anaheim from 1946 to 1994, the Oakland Raiders, who played there from 1982 to 1994, and the San Diego Chargers, who played their inaugural season in Los Angeles. Kroenke had the stadium being built in Inglewood, and the Raiders and Chargers announced plans for a $1.7 billion stadium located in Carson, California. Both the Raiders and Chargers also announced hopes to get new stadiums built in Oakland/San Diego, respectively. All teams currently had in place a year-to-year lease with outs as the first pieces began to fall between Stan Kroenke and the city of St. Louis. The, at the time, Edwin James Dome was supposed to be the 8th best stadium by the time the 2014 season ended, as per the agreement the team and the city had, with St. Louis CVC being required to improve the dome in 2005. This was waived, however, by Georgia Frontier in exchange for cash due to the non-compliance. Minor reservations took place that cost $70 million, but the stadium still fell below the required specifications. In 2012, the St. Louis CVC proposed a $124 million upgrade that was countered by Kroenke with a $700 million upgrade. An arbiter ruled in favor of the Rams, and the CVC announced no upgrades would be pursued, thus putting the team status in St. Louis in question. A resolution needed to be made between the two sides by the end of the 2014 season, and when that went nowhere, the Rams were free to nullify the lease and go year to year. Both Mark Davis and Dean Spanos at this time were more so in just discussions about a move, with no real threats seeming likely, at least from the Raiders' end. The Chargers, however, have had complications with Qualcomm Stadium for as far back as 2007, and their escape clause in the lease has been available since then as well. And so, on October 23rd, 2015, the Chargers announced intentions to relocate to Los Angeles. And when January 4th rolled around and teams were able to put in paperwork to relocate, all 3 teams submitted their paperwork. Weeks later, at the owners' meeting in Houston, the owners were set to vote on the relocations, with Jerry Jones saying before the meetings that the Rams and Chargers should be the 2 teams to move, with them sharing the stadium Kroenke was building. As the voting started, 6 NFL owners, which were known as the Committee of Los Angeles Opportunities, favored the Carson proposal of the Chargers. But when the voting ended, the Rams and Inglewood got more votes, but a second round was still needed. Eventually, the Inglewood proposal won the vote in, and thus the Rams would relocate first, with the Chargers having an option to join them, followed by the Raiders if the Chargers declined. A movement fee of $550 million was put in place for any team trying to move, and the Rams would play 4 seasons at the Coliseum, starting in 2016, while they wait for SoFi to be finished. The Chargers announced plans to accept the option to join the Rams, with them leaving San Diego for LA in 2017. They played 3 seasons at StubHub Center before SoFi was finished, but if only it was this easy, as the city of St. Louis was not pleased with the Rams' sudden departure. They would sue both Kroenke and the NFL, claiming the league violated its own guidelines for relocation in 2017. The settlement was agreed upon in 2021, saying that the NFL and the Rams had to pay the city $790 million, with $275 million going for attorney fees and the other $512 million going to the city. Since these teams moved, the on-the-field play have been different, with the Rams having gone to 2 Super Bowls, winning one of them in 2021. The Chargers have rebuilt and now have their new franchise quarterback in Justin Herbert, with a team that just exceeded expectations by making the playoffs after completely changing the philosophy thanks to Jim Harbaugh. This most likely won't be the end to the story with the NFL in Los Angeles, but for the time being, this feels like the end of a long road for both the league and the city that have been staples in the sports world for decades and have a very rocky history together. With all that being said, thank you all for tuning in. Leave a like and subscribe. You know the whole YouTube spiel. I'll see you all next time. Have yourselves a damn good one. Peace.